Happy Halloween, everybody! I hope you're enjoying the holiday and having fun. What I thought would be fun for today's video would be that we look back at some nightmare situations. My bad takes so far this season. I believe in being held accountable, and rather than champion my takes where I was right, I'd rather talk about the times when I was wrong. In this video, I will go over 5 takes that aged like milk. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college ball content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know which take you made that aged like milk in the comment section below. Let's start off with the feel-good bad take I had earlier this year, and look back at what I said about UCLA football. For once, there seemed to be some excitement around UCLA football. Expectations were for them to make a bowl game at the very least, with the influx of talent. I felt like they were still pretty bad personally though heading into the season. The excitement wouldn't last long as disaster would hit almost immediately. During the season opener, they would be embarrassed by Utah 43-10 at home. Then they would lose to UNLV 23-20 in Vegas, but the low point though would come against New Mexico when they were not just beaten but destroyed by the Lobos 35-10 in an empty Rose Bowl stadium. It was an embarrassment and would lead to the firing of Foster's head coach. UCLA said in a statement, knowing they messed up, saying, "He was named to this role at a challenging time of the year, on the cusp of a move to a new conference, and he embraced it, putting his heart into the program moving forward. His legacy and love for this university are firmly established. They are now staring down a possible 0-12 season with their best chance of winning coming against Northwestern this past weekend, a game they would go on to lose. UCLA's schedule is not easy to close out the season, and it's hard to pick out a game they can win. They host Penn State next week before having a 9 a.m. Pacific kickoff against Michigan State in East Lansing. They then host Maryland before traveling to Bloomington to play Indiana. They close out the season hosting Nebraska and Washington and travel to Ohio State and USC. Looking at their schedule, I don't see them winning a game. This program is a disaster. They don't have a stadium on campus, and although I love the Rose Bowl, it's hard to think fans will buy in and show up with it being so far off campus and the product being put on the field. Nico has regressed, having thrown for 788 yards and 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions this year. The school's alumni base just doesn't care about football, so although they have a decently rich alumni base, the school is second worst in football ticket revenue, according to the 2024 financial reports obtained by The Athletic's Scott Dochterman. The Bruins lost $200 million over the previous 5 years. It's hard to get excited for this program and think they will get a big name hire. UCLA is a disaster, and I bet some fans wish they could just cancel the remainder of the season. I made that video back when they lost to Northwestern and right before they played Penn State. Yeah, time was not very kind to me on that one. The same week I made that video, UCLA would upset Penn State in the Rose Bowl, basically breaking the Nittany Lions, as they have not won a game since. They then traveled to Michigan State, where they blew out the Spartans 38-13, and followed that up with a 20-17 victory over Maryland. The comment section for that video flooded with, "I was wrong about my take and that it aged like milk," but I will not change the title of the video, as I just have to eat what I said and take it on the chin. Although UCLA just lost to Indiana, they are still alive to make a bowl game. All they need to do is win 3 of their next 4 games against Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, and USC. It's a brutal schedule to close out the year, but I've learned not to bet against the Bruins this year, and not making that mistake again. Everybody thought Florida State was back following their win over Alabama in the season opener, but that has turned out to be more of an anomaly compared to anything else. In my video on them, I said this. Heading into the 2025 season, Phil Steele projected Florida State to finish tied for 4th in the ACC behind Clemson, SMU, and Miami. According to Vegas, their over-under win total was 6.5 as well. Florida State would be tested early as they opened up the season hosting Alabama. The Crimson Tide were coming off a disappointing season after going 9-4 and entered the game as 13.5 point favorites. A lot of people, including myself, thought Alabama was going to dominate Florida State, and that point was reinforced when Bama drove down the field on their opening drive and scored. But then Florida State would bow up and dominate Alabama the rest of the game. They held the Crimson Tide to 87 rushing yards and 254 passing yards, while dominating Bama's defense, rushing for 233 yards on the ground. Castellanos would be proven right, as Alabama could not stop the quarterback, and Florida State would shock the college football world, beating Alabama 31-17. The following day, Castellanos dropped t-shirts that read, "Nick can't save them." Castellanos' prophecy proved true as he accounted for 230 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. They then dominated East Texas A&M University 77-3, avoiding a hangover, finishing the game with 361 rushing yards and 368 passing yards. They went into half up 49-0, and Castellanos and the rest of the starters would not need to play much. After a bye week last week, they now host Kent State this upcoming weekend. Florida State is currently sitting at number 7 in the AP poll and number 9 in the coaches poll, and they are the second highest ranked ACC team behind Miami. Florida State has a relatively manageable schedule the remainder of the season. They open up ACC play next week against Virginia on the road before hosting Miami at home, which could be the biggest matchup of the season. They then host Pitt before traveling on the road to play a dreadful Stanford team. They return home to play Wake Forest before traveling to Death Valley to take on a Clemson team that is underperforming right now. They then return home to play Virginia Tech, a team that just got blown out by Old Dominion and fired their head coach, so that roster may be depleted at the time. They close out the season on the road against NC State and in Gainesville against Florida. With the way this Florida State team is playing, they could probably lose 2 games and still make the college football playoffs. This is an amazing turnaround after a brutal season last year. I can't wait to see how they perform in the remainder of the season. I released my video on Florida State following their win over East Texas A&M. Since that video was released, they are 1-4 with their lone win coming over Kent State. They would be upset by Virginia before falling to Miami. They would lose to a Pitt team that was led by a freshman quarterback, and before their bye this weekend, they lost to Stanford on the road. This season has turned into an ugly one as the Seminoles have not won an ACC game since September 21st, 2024 against Cal, when they got bailed out by the refs. They are 1-11 in ACC play since they won the ACC title in 2023. Florida State went from an early season college football playoff contender after beating the Crimson Tide, but now everyone is questioning whether Mike Norvell even survives the season. It has been an absolute disaster, and I still don't think that Florida State fan has ever eaten the shit. This was a shitty take by me, and I don't know if Florida State wins another game this season. It's almost like they bought into all the hype everyone was saying about them. Castellanos went from Heisman contender to going back to being the exact player he was at Boston College. Hopefully he is able to return this week and is healthier after getting hurt earlier this year. Let's go to the Group of 5 level and talk about UTEP football. In my video over the summer, I bought into all the hype, mainly because I was hoping for a feel-good story and said this. Heading into the 2025 season for the first time in a very long time, there's seemingly hope when it comes to the minors program. They would add former 5-star recruit Malachi Nelson this offseason, who transferred in from Boise State after starting his collegiate career at USC. Nelson becomes the highest rated recruit in UTEP history. Miners brought in their best recruiting class in program history as well. They brought in 35 players as well as a new offensive coordinator in Mark Kalla and defensive coordinator in Bobby Daly. Nelson was not promised a starting quarterback job coming in, according to the El Paso Times, wanting to usurp Skylar Locklear as Cade McConnell is out after getting wrist surgery. Although they brought in a new offensive coordinator, Walden will still be the play caller, meaning that his offense will look pretty similar to last year. Walden spoke on the defense, saying defensively our structure is going to remain the same. 5 years ago, we started running this defensive system. Coach Daly has a little different background, but he understood in the interview process, we're not changing our terminology or our structure, but the coordinator has to be right to put his own spin on it. You'll see some new things he'll add that is pretty cool and be helpful for our guys. He will be replacing all conference players in Maurice Westmoreland and Kyron Duhan on defense as they went after a bunch of guys through the transfer portal. When it came to overall guys to keep an eye on, Walden cited offensive lineman Mark Robinson, defensive back Neil Campbell, and punter Noah Botsford. Robinson is a transfer from NAIA school, Southeastern University. He comes to an offensive line with 3 returning starters. He will be expected to fill the hole left by departing tackle Isaiah Wright. Campbell is another NAIA grad, as he was an All-American last year, his 5th at Indiana Wesleyan. UTEP is starting over at punter, and Botsford, who comes from Valdosta State, is the likely one. Phil Steele believes there's a lot to like with this team writing. They are bigger and stronger and have a manageable schedule. They will easily top 3 wins and flirt with bowl eligibility. He projects them to finish 5th in the Conference USA behind Liberty, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and New Mexico State. Others like Dave Campbell Football are talking about the possibility of a 10-win season in El Paso. The Miners avoid Western Kentucky and host Liberty while playing most of the FBS newcomers and bottom barrel Conference USA teams on the road. If they survive their first 6 games at Utah State, home against UT Martin, at Texas, home against UL Monroe, Louisiana Tech, and Liberty, they could be in store for the best year the program has seen in over a century if they are sitting at 3-3 or 4-2. They close out the regular season on the road against Sam Houston and Kennesaw State, host Jack State, then travel to Missouri State, which is viewed as a trap game, host rival New Mexico State in their biggest game of the year, or closing out on the road against Delaware. Dave Campbell's Texas Football writes, pull a couple of the upsets early in the Conference USA schedule and UTEP could be a dark horse contender in the same way Sam Houston became last year. That 5-game stretch to close out the regular season includes 2 new FBS programs and 3 schools with new head coaches. A 4-1 or 5-0 record is a real possibility during that time of the year. Year 2 under Walden could be a major launching off point for the program that could possibly take it to the next level if things work out, especially with this being UTEP's last season in the Conference USA. Well, UTEP is currently 2-6, with their only wins over Sam Houston and UT Martin from the FCS level. Malachi Nelson was benched in favor of Skylar Locklear. Nelson has not played since the Liberty game and had thrown for 1,163 yards, 8 touchdowns, and a brutal 9 interceptions, including 4 interceptions in a game against Louisiana Tech. I don't know if Nelson will see the field again this year. I don't know if Scotty Walden keeps the head coaching job. I more so made this video because I wanted to be able to talk about UTEP football, and I wanted them to be good, but the take of them competing for the Conference USA title has not aged well whatsoever. They have a bye this week and will close out the season against Jacksonville State and New Mexico State at home, and on the road against Missouri State and Delaware. I don't think they even make a bowl game this year. Let's travel to the SEC and talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks. In my video before the season, I said this. According to Phil Steele, South Carolina has the 4th hardest schedule in the nation as they open up the season against Virginia Tech, travel to Missouri, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, and host Oklahoma, Alabama, and Clemson. The other games are South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Coastal Carolina. According to Steele, they are projected to finish 10th in the SEC. They are favored to open up the season 4-1 or 5-0, but he believes things will fall apart with a brutal second half, with the LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Ole Miss games coming back to back to back to back, before a bye and closing out SEC play in College Station. According to the ESPN team of Mark Schlauback, Chris Lowe, Max Olson, Tom Luganbill, Bill Tucker, and the ESPN research department, South Carolina is one of 11 teams in the college football playoff mix. However, they label USC as a long shot. That long shot chance, based on ESPN's FBI, is 20.3%, they wrote. The Gamecocks might have a bona fide star in Sellers, but they're having to replace many of the key pieces around him as well as several difference makers on defense. South Carolina plays a 5-game stretch including LSU on the road, Oklahoma at home, Alabama at home, and Ole Miss on the road, and Texas A&M on the road in October and November. According to the coaches poll, the end of the season is the 13th best team in the nation. Vegas has their over-under win total at 7.5, and Sellers is the top 10 when it comes to Heisman odds. This South Carolina team will need to rely on their offense more this season with so many new pieces on defense. But with Sellers at quarterback, anything seems possible. While it's unlikely, South Carolina could find itself going through a breakout season and making the college football playoffs this year. I once again fell for and bought in again to the Shane Beamer hype and the idea that Beamer would lead South Carolina to a lot of success this season after watching the Netflix documentary. I also, to be honest, thought people were going to find Beamer very likable in the documentary, so I did the South Carolina video to capitalize on that. But excuses are excuses, and I did say that South Carolina could possibly make the college football playoffs. After entering the season as the 13th ranked team in the nation, things have become a disaster as they are sitting at 3-5 after blowing it against Alabama, went 0-3 in October, which is blasphemy. They have a tough schedule to close out the regular season with games against number 7 Ole Miss, number 3 Texas A&M, Coastal Carolina, and Clemson. They need to win 3 of those games to make a bowl game, and they need at least one top 10 upset, which is always possible under Beamer, but they would need to do it on the road this time. They may finish with a 1-7 record in SEC play, which is insane after they came in with college football playoff aspirations. Me buying into that did not age well whatsoever. Last but not least, let's go over to Wisconsin and talk about Danny O'Neal. In my video, I said this. Then Edwards would go down during the season on the 3rd drive of the season with a non-contact injury, bringing nightmares back to Badger fans. It is the 3rd time our starting quarterback has gone down with an injury. While it turns out the injury will be a week-to-week situation, Badger fans did not know that at first. Danny would be thrusted in the starting role. While it would be a roller coaster of a performance with a bad interception and 2 more possible interceptions, there were also some flashes of some really good as he led 2 touchdown drives and showed some heart and grit with his legs, something Locke did not do last year. O'Neal impressed me personally, and I'm expecting him to improve come this weekend against Middle Tennessee in Week 2, having the game plan centered around him, getting all the starting reps with Edwards being week to week. He finished the game completing 12 of his 19 passes for 120 yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and an interception. O'Neal spoke on going into the game saying, "I was in the fire. Being able to step into it tonight was nothing new. I was out there playing my game, playing ball, getting the ball to playmakers all night long. That was really my goal. I didn't want to hang on to the ball too much. Just be able to let guys go and make plays. That's the biggest, I think the best part of the offense. We have so many ways to get the ball to so many different playmakers. It really does make my job easier." Fickell spoke on O'Neal's performance, saying the maturity level to be prepared enough to go out and perform. And let's be honest, you don't get as many reps. In hindsight, maybe we should have split those things 60-40 or 50-50. You've got to understand that in this game, you never know when your number is going to be called. To have a competitive excellence means you've got to be prepared when that time comes. And spoke on Edwards' injury, saying, "I can honestly say that no, that was by far the furthest thing that I was expecting or hoping. More than anything, you just had to kind of keep a straight face and not show any emotion of any sorts. I thought our guys did a really good job of that. I thought Billy did a really good job. I thought Danny did a really good job of that. While the schedule is brutal this year, this Badger team feels different compared to the last 5 years. And whether Edwards or O'Neal is under center, I think the Badgers will impress people as the season goes on, and may shock some fans and the country in 1 or 2 games. The energy on the sideline just felt different on Thursday than it has felt since 2019. Danny was benched in favor of Hunter Simmons, going to the Michigan game, and has not seen much playing time since the benching, even though Simmons has been god-awful and made me actually stop watching Wisconsin football. I've not watched a Badger game since halfway through the first quarter against Iowa. Since O'Neal's benching, the Badgers were shut out twice and had not scored a touchdown in 15.5 quarters, or scoring a touchdown against Oregon this past weekend. It makes no sense why Fickell has not turned back to O'Neal, who threw for 635 yards, 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while rushing for a touchdown on the ground before being benched. Maybe with 4 games left, the Badgers will turn to Carter Smith to see if he could get things going. I would actually tune back into a Badger game if Smith got to start. And those are 5 terrifying takes I made before and during the season that have not aged well whatsoever. What was your worst take this season? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Happy Halloween, thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.